Once upon a time, there was a little girl called Little Red Riding Hood. She loved how her ruby red cloak swished and swayed as she skipped around her bedroom. Little Red Riding Hood lived by a creaky old forest where her mother kept bees and her father chopped down trees. One day, Little Red Riding Hood's mother gave her a pot of honey. "Will you take this to Grandma?" Birds swooped and chirped as Little Red Riding Hood skipped happily through the trees. "Hello, Little Red Riding Hood," called her father. But someone else was watching her too. "A wolf!" The wolf licked his lips and wagged his tail as he thought about eating Little Red Riding Hood for lunch. He could have followed her and gobbled her up, but this was a cunning and crafty wolf who loved to sneak around and set clever traps. Snickering and snarling, the wolf laid a large net on the path between the trees. His tail twitched as Little Red Riding Hood skipped closer and closer and skipped right over the net. Mumbling and muttering, the wolf dug a deep hole and covered it with sticks and leaves. His eye bulged as Little Red Riding Hood skipped closer and closer and skipped right over the hole. The wolf had one last plan. Grinning and giggling, he crept to Grandma's cottage and knocked on the door. He waited and waited, and then gobbled up Grandma, up in one hungry gulp. "Delicious," the wolf chortled. "Now for the main course." The wolf's grin grew wider as he pulled on Grandma's clothes and leaped into her bed. "I'm so crafty," he chuckled. "I'm the cleverest creature in the forest." He waited and waited until Little Red Riding Hood skipped into the cottage. "Hello, Grandma," said Little Red Riding Hood. "I've brought you some honey." Little Red Riding Hood came closer. "Oh, Grandma, what big ears you have!" "All the better to hear you with, my dear," said the wolf. "Oh, Grandma, what big eyes you have!" "All the better to see you with, my dear." "Oh, Grandma, what big hairy hands you have!" "All the better to hug you with, my dear." Little Red Riding Hood stepped back. Grandma, what big teeth you have!" "All the better to eat you with," snarled the wolf. Hooting and howling, the greedy wolf burst from the bed and swallowed Little Red Riding Hood in one enormous gulp. With a full tummy and a happy smile, the wolf fell into a deep and dreamy sleep. He didn't see Little Red Riding Hood's father at the window. With a mighty roar, Little Red Riding Hood's father stormed into the cottage. He chopped up the wolf's tummy, and Little Red Riding Hood and Grandma came tumbling out. Now, Grandma had a cunning and crafty plan too. Little Red Riding Hood gathered stones from outside and dropped some into the wolf's tummy. Then Grandma stitched his tummy up. When the wolf woke, he howled and howled and howled again. Each time he moved, the stones rattled inside him. "I'll never be able to sneak around and set cunning traps," he moaned, as he fled back to the forest. Now, all the wolf could eat were worms and beetles and slow little bugs. He was never cunning and crafty again. And Little Red Riding Hood skipped all the way home. The end.